In today's global football economy, the game is no longer just about goals, trophies, and legendary players. It's about money, power, and the invisible systems that quietly shape success behind the scenes. While fans celebrate titles and rivalries, a parallel world exists far from the stadium lights, where financial engineers, offshore accounts, and tax havens play a decisive role in determining which clubs rise to dominance and which are left behind. This is the untold story of how hidden tax havens have become one of the most powerful forces driving modern football's biggest financial success stories. To understand this system, you first need to look at how football evolved into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Organizations like FIFA and UEFA transformed the sport into a global spectacle, generating massive revenue streams from broadcasting rights, sponsorships, and international tournaments. But as money flooded into the game, so did financial complexity. Clubs were no longer just sports teams. They became global corporations, often structured across multiple jurisdictions to maximize profits and minimize taxes. This is where tax havens enter the picture. Places like the Cayman Islands, Luxembourg, and the British Virgin Islands have become central nodes in football's financial network. These jurisdictions offer low or zero corporate taxes, secrecy laws, and flexible regulations that allow clubs, agents, and investors to move money in ways that would be impossible in more strictly regulated countries. What appears on the surface as a simple player transfer or sponsorship deal often involves a web of offshore entities designed to reduce tax burdens and increase profitability. Take, for example, the structure behind many elite European clubs. While fans see a club competing in the Premier League or the La Liga, the ownership might be routed through multiple shell companies registered in tax-friendly jurisdictions. This allows investors to channel profits through these entities, avoiding higher tax rates in their home countries. In some cases, even player image rights, an increasingly valuable revenue stream, are assigned to offshore companies, meaning that a portion of a player's income is taxed at significantly lower rates. This system has helped fuel the meteoric rise of certain clubs. Wealthy ownership groups, each often backed by private equity or sovereign wealth funds, leverage tax-efficient structures to maximize their returns while continuing to invest heavily in players and infrastructure. The result is a cycle of success. Lower taxes mean more available capital, which leads to better players, stronger performances, and even greater revenues. Over time, this creates a widening gap between financially optimized clubs and those operating within traditional tax systems. One of the most controversial aspects of this system is how it affects competitive balance. Clubs that utilize offshore structures effectively gain a financial advantage over those that don't, while financial fair play regulations introduced by UEFA aim to level the playing field. Critics argue that these rules often fail to address the underlying issue, the global tax system itself. As long as clubs can legally shift profits to low-tax jurisdictions, true financial parity remains elusive. The role of agents and intermediaries further complicates the picture. Modern football agents operate as global businessmen, often structuring deals through offshore companies to reduce taxes on commissions. A single high-profile transfer can involve multiple layers of payments, signing bonuses, agent fees, performance incentives, all potentially routed through different jurisdictions. This not only increases profitability for those involved, but also makes financial transparency nearly impossible. Broadcasting deals provide another window into this hidden world. It's when leagues negotiate multi-billion-dollar contracts with global networks. The revenue generated is often distributed through complex corporate structures. Some clubs establish subsidiaries in tax havens to receive international broadcasting income, thereby reducing their overall tax liability. In an era where media rights are the lifeblood of football's financial ecosystem, even small tax advantages can translate into massive competitive gains. Sponsorship deals, too, are deeply intertwined with offshore finance. Many top clubs have partnerships with multinational corporations, some of which are linked to the same ownership groups. By routing sponsorship payments through tax-efficient jurisdictions, both the club and the sponsor can benefit from reduced tax exposure. Critics have pointed out that in some cases, as these deals may be artificially inflated, raising questions about financial fair play compliance and the true value of such agreements. The globalization of football has only accelerated these trends. As clubs expand their brands into Asia, the Middle East, and the Americas, they increasingly rely on international corporate structures to manage revenue streams. Merchandise sales, digital content, content, and international academies all generate income that can be strategically allocated across different jurisdictions. This allows clubs to optimize their tax positions while maintaining a global presence. However, this system is not without risks. Governments and regulatory bodies are becoming increasingly aware of the role tax havens play in football's financial ecosystem. Investigations into tax avoidance and financial irregularities have already led to high-profile cases involving players, agents, and clubs. Authorities are pushing for greater transparency and stricter regulations, but enforcing these rules across multiple jurisdictions remains a significant challenge. The ethical implications of this system are also a growing concern. While clubs and investors operate within the bounds of the law, the use of tax havens raises questions about fairness and social responsibility. At a time when many fans face economic hardship, the idea that wealthy clubs can legally avoid paying taxes in the countries where they operate is increasingly controversial. This tension between financial optimization and public perception is shaping the future of football governance. Interestingly, not all clubs rely on these strategies to the same extent. Some teams pride themselves on financial transparency and adherence to domestic tax systems, even if it means sacrificing a competitive edge. These clubs often appeal to fans who value tradition and integrity over financial dominance. However, in an increasingly competitive environment, maintaining this approach can be difficult. The influence of private equity has further intensified the use of tax havens in football. Investment firms entering the sport bring with them sophisticated financial strategies honed in global markets. Their primary goal is to generate returns, and tax efficiency is a key component of that strategy. By structuring investments through offshore entities, these firms can maximize profits while minimizing risk, reshaping the financial landscape of the sport. But at the same time, the rise of data analytics and digital platforms has created new opportunities for revenue generation and tax optimization. Clubs now monetize everything from fan engagement to streaming services, often through separate corporate entities. These digital revenues can be routed through jurisdictions with favorable tax laws, adding another layer to the already complex financial structure of modern football. As the game continues to evolve, the role of tax havens is likely to remain a central issue. Efforts to reform the global tax system, including initiatives aimed at increasing transparency and closing loopholes, could have a significant impact on football's financial ecosystem. However, as long as disparities between national tax regimes exist, clubs and investors will continue to seek out the most advantageous structures. For fans, this hidden world may seem distant, but its effects are felt every time a club signs a star player, builds a new stadium, or competes for a major trophy. The financial strategies employed behind the scenes directly influence what happens on the pitch. Understanding this connection is key to understanding modern football itself. In the end, the story of tax havens in football is not just about money, it's about power. It's about who controls the game, who benefits from its success, and how the rules are shaped to favor certain players over others. As the sport continues to grow, these questions will become increasingly important, challenging fans, regulators, and stakeholders to rethink what fairness and success truly mean in the world's most popular game. And perhaps the most striking realization is this: while the roar of the crowd and the drama of the match will always define football's emotional core, the real game, the one that determines long-term success, is often played far away from the pitch in boardrooms, legal offices, and offshore accounts hidden from public view.